Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jared Johnson, and man, what a great experience the Texas Tech spring game ended up being. They had to call audible as heavy rain, thunderstorms in the West Texas area, including Midland, called for Texas Tech to have to change plans, not play the game in Midland like expected. And I know that was disappointing for a lot of fans, but it was truly, a nasty day. Even the baseball game here at Texas Tech against West Virginia was postponed for a day. So instead, they hosted the game at the indoor practice facility, which is one of the reasons it's for, right? When there's bad weather, you can go inside and still practice. And it's a cozy affair. You're talking about an 80-yard field, not a full 100-yard field, but it's a really cool facility. It's one of the best indoor facilities I've ever seen. If you've been in there, you know what I'm talking about. There's plenty of pictures and video from there showing off just how cool that indoor practice facility is. And there were a lot of players' families, like their parents and coaches' families, and it had a family feel to it, but it was packed. There was, at least 100, maybe 200 people, and they had to have ropes and everything. And graciously, Joey McGuire, the athletic department, allowed the media to watch the spring game in its entirety. And man, it was, after all the changes, the audible, the can't have it at the Jones because of construction, can't have it in Midland because of bad weather, it ended up being an awesome spring game. Maybe the best spring game, probably was the best spring game I've ever been to. And I think the reason for that was, one, the format. I think the format was great. And what they did was they split the whole roster, really the whole program, into two teams, a black team and a white team. The black team was captained by starting quarterback Baron Morton. Of course, he's been out for the second half of spring game, but he got to pick the players. And then Taj Brooks was the captain of the white team. And they held him out because they know what they have in star running back Taj Brooks. Why get him injured? So that made for a highly competitive, physical game. And that's something that Joey McGuire afterwards said. I had a lot of fun. He had a lot of fun. The players said they really enjoyed it. It made for a really physical scrimmage and game. And, I got to say, I even told McGuire afterwards, look, I've been to a lot of spring games, not just Texas Tech, and this was probably my favorite one. I feel like I saw more. It felt more competitive. It didn't feel – I think part of it was the fact that instead of being at the Jones or some other stadium where, let's be honest, maybe half full, the Jones we're talking about much less, it was packed. There was a lot of juice. It was a perfect storm for a very good game. Another thing is there was no major injuries coming out of it, and it was a really close game. It was 27-24 in overtime. Team White, captained by Taj Brooks, who, like I said, did not play. They ended up winning. And not only that, but it was really competitive in terms of both offenses. And the three quarterbacks that were playing, Cameron Brown, Jake Strong, and true freshman Will Hammond, they were rotating on both teams. So none of the quarterbacks were attached to a team. Cameron Brown got the first reps, followed by true freshman Will Hammond, and then Jake Strong. And they were playing for both teams, but everything else was divided. The rest of the players had been picked. The coaching staff, even like the coordinators, the position coaches, the strength staff, the nutrition staff, the sports information directors, the liaisons between the athletic department and us media folks, they were split up as well. So that made for a highly competitive game. Anywhere you could find that kind of competitiveness, especially 15 practices into spring when you're still months away from the actual season kickoff, is a great thing. Another thing I thought was really cool was that in this is how Joey McGuire really approaches everything, and approached it during bowl game practices as well. Despite guys like Anquan Willis and Landon Hullaby already being in the transfer portal, they were allowed to play in the spring game. And I thought it was really cool that C.J. Baskerville and Cam Morgan, a couple players who, oh, by the way, transferred into Texas Tech from other schools, they were asked about how do you feel about Anquan Willis and Hullaby playing despite them already being in the transfer portal, in the spring game Saturday. And they had a different perspective on it. I think a lot of people, especially fans, and maybe even us cynical media folks, would have on it. They said, look, we were in the portal. We understand. Understand that they are going. They're looking for a better situation, but they could have been doing anything. They said, CJ Baskerville said, tomorrow Anquan Willis won't be on the roster, but he decided to suit up and play. Not only did he play, but he ripped off like a 40, 50-yard touchdown run. It was really nice, which kind of had me thinking like, you sure you want this guy to go? But McGuire said after the spring game that, look, I think that ship has sailed. Willis is going to leave, and he wished him well. And he was asked, why did you allow him to play? And he said, look, if you practice the right way, you do all the right things, and you're looking, and it just didn't work out on both sides, then why keep these guys from playing? They want to play with their brothers, and we'll let them play. And I think that's really cool. And that long run that Willis had, no doubt he's going to have that to show, and that's going to get him a roster spot somewhere. He may not have even needed that, but. And I know there's some Tech fans like, don't leave. We want you to stay here. But for reasons, part of it's just the depth chart, the way they see it, the way he wants to be utilized. He's going to look for greener pastures. Hopefully he finds it. I just think it was really cool that he wanted to play. I think it's cool that McGuire allowed him to play. And I think it's cool that guys understand it's a business situation. And, after Willis ripped off that long touchdown run, he was mobbed by the entire team. He played on the black team, and the whole black jersey team mobbed him in the end zone. It was right in front of me. And that was a cool moment. It just was. It's weird. It hit home like what a strange time we're living in college athletics. But that's an aside. I could do a series of videos on that. Going back to just this spring game and how Texas Tech looked, I thought it was really cool that the offense aired it out, which we hadn't seen. Last year the passing game was not good. You had your star Taj Brooks, and the rest was a struggle for a number of reasons. But you saw three different quarterbacks all throw touchdown passes. Cameron Brown threw 2 touchdown passes. Will Hammond, the true freshman, threw 2 touchdown passes. He did throw an interception, but McGuire was quick to point out that was just his 4th interception thrown all spring, regardless, against any kind of competitive, whether it be competition situation, whether it be 7-on-7 or scrimmages or what have you. That was just his 4th interception. So it was a bad throw, and it was a great play by Jordan Sanford, who jumped the route in the flat, former 4-star recruit, safety for Texas Tech. He's in the mix there at safety. Great play by him. But he also threw 2 touchdowns. Will Hammond looked really good overall. And then Jake Strong even had a really nice drive, had a play-action touchdown throw to Jake Llewellyn, a tight end who he's going to have to fight. Former 4-star recruit, transferring in from Oklahoma, from Aledo, great high school football program, and obviously great college football program he's coming from. And he's going to have to fight for snaps. John Carlos Miller is another tight end who had a touchdown catch on kind of a fade. I thought Cam Douglas, man, he showed up. He mossed a couple of good guys who expected to start in the secondary for Texas Tech. Had a long touchdown run or catch, and then another long reception as well, where it was mano a mano, 50-50 ball, and it was no contest. So you're saying, oh no, should we worry about the secondary? No. CJ Baskerville looked great at boundary safety. That's his natural position. He made some great plays back there. Mo Horn at corner. He did get burnt on one of those touchdowns, but he came back and had a great second half. The defense responded. The first half dominated the first part of the scrimmage, no matter who the quarterback was, no matter which side. It was weird how the offense at first just came out and just, I was already thinking like, man, the fans, y'all there inside the Red Raiders, YouTube, what have you, on social media, the word's going to come out and they're going to be crushing the defense, but the defense responded and absolutely shut the offenses down for at least the whole second half. It was really, really cool to see both sides dominate, no matter if it was the white team or the black team, no matter who the quarterback was, no matter who was in. And Mo Horn was part of that. He really responded. Both the inside linebacker, all the inside linebackers looked really good. Jacob Rodriguez had some huge hits inside the tackle box there in some run game action. Bryce Ramirez, especially early, was all over the field. He looks great at inside linebacker. Ben Roberts had a bit of a shoulder stinger, but I think he came back. Uh, he made a couple of plays. Man, I'm trying to think about the two young outside linebackers. I actually asked McGuire about it after the spring game. Amir Washington and Dylan Spencer both had themselves a game. Amir Washington, those who were nervous, maybe it was just a fluke. His 4 tackle for loss, 2 sack, forced fumble, dominating performance in the bowl game against Cal. Tech's 34-14 victory, very convincing victory in that Independence Bowl. No, I don't think it was a fluke. Everything I've seen from him this spring, everything I've heard from coaches about him, including McGuire after the spring game, has been like, this guy, watch out. And he looked like a serious problem for opposing. I don't care who's trying to block him. I don't care what offense he's facing. I think Amir Washington's going to be an absolute stud for Texas Tech at one of the outside linebacker spots. On the other side, Dylan Spencer, both of them got their hands up and affected some of the passes. Spencer batted one up in the air that should have been intercepted, could have been intercepted. He also was very stout against the run game. You're talking about 2 really young guys. One, who's a sophomore. He didn't get to redshirt his true freshman year last year. And he's 6'5", 245, and he's strong, stout. And then Amir Washington, who's 6'2", 275 pounds. And we're talking about, like, in my mind, he's going to be one of Texas Tech's top pass rushing specialists, and he's going to be a problem for opposing Big 12 teams. Every team that Tech plays, like, that dude is a stud. He's a redshirt freshman. 2 young guys, very physical. When I asked McGuire about specifically Dylan Spencer, and he brought up Amir Washington as well, he talked about them being 2 of the more physical, toughest young players he's ever been around. And he's been around a lot of really good players. And y'all want to talk about his high school, just high school days. Well, Cedar Hill has produced a lot of talent, especially when McGuire was there. And then his years at Baylor and now at Tech. Joe McGuire has been around a lot of really good young talent. For him to say those 2 guys are 2 of the toughest dudes he's been around, young dudes he's been around, I think that's saying a lot. 2 really physical players who have the size and ability, I think, to be dominant moving forward. So I'm really excited about those guys. Coy Aiken is another dude I think I should mention. He had a long fade for a touchdown. And then Jordan Brown, 2 returners. We like to talk about a lot of the new guys, the transfers who came in. And Josh Kelly had a really good catch, too, out of the slot. But those 2 returners, Jordan Brown and Coy Aiken, looked really good. They each caught touchdown passes as well. So, I do believe the receiving core is improved. How much so we'll see in the actual season. But and then the kicking game, I thought Burkhart, who has been the kickoff specialist, he nailed like a 50-plus yarder to tie the game up, and then he nailed the game winner in overtime. You got to watch out for him. Gino Garcia may have some real competition. Burkhart is a very good kickoff specialist. Like, I like him a lot in that aspect. But if he can be there's never been a question about leg strength, but can he be consistently accurate? Can he make those 40-yard field goals? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like, is he going to make that consistently? Tech doesn't want that errant field goal miss when they actually don't go for it, which is a rarity under McGuire, given his analytical approach. But when they actually do say, okay, it's time to kick a field goal, they need somebody they know who's going to be solid between 35 and 50 yards. If he can develop into that to go along with his ability in terms of as a long-range kicker, like a true weapon and 50-plus, they may really have something. But then again, you also have Gino Garcia, who outside of the season opener against Wyoming was very solid last year. So they have a legit kicking competition, which I don't think is settled yet. And I think Burkhart made it very interesting because of his performance in the spring game. So there's that. I'm trying to think about what else I want to mention. People want to know about the offensive line. I thought they played okay. There was times that they gave the quarterbacks a lot of time, even like on some blitz pickups. They did some, it wasn't as vanilla as they were going to say. I think that was another reason why the scrimmage was so good was, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they pulled out on either side, whether it be the offense or the defense, like all the stops. I'm not saying that. But they did blitz some. They blitzed right up the gut with, Jacob Rodriguez coming up on blitzes right through the A-gap. And, I mean, that's the real deal. You got J-Rod coming blitzing through the A-gap with the other inside linebacker, whoever it may be in the A-gap, where it's cover zero and all that right in your face, especially since the quarterbacks, they're going to be touchdown. They weren't live. They weren't going to be tackled, where maybe they might have gotten out of some of that pressure in a real game experience. But the fact that you have those kind of blitzes being called lets you know that there's some real deal part of this. And the offensive line held up in some situations. Now, don't get me, it was a very much give and take, which is, I think, what you want to see in a spring game. Sometimes the offensive line really held up. Sometimes Tech got quick early pressure. Sometimes there was great coverage, and the quarterback was forced to escape the pocket. And then it was just who made the play. Sometimes the offense made a play, broke a tackle here or there after a check down. Sometimes the quarterback was forced to just get rid of the ball. So I think it was kind of even, which, let's face it, we'll take it. I expect this defense and the defensive front to be 2-3 deep, very salty, no matter who they play on Texas Tech's schedule coming up. So for the offensive line to basically play that defensive front to a stalemate is a really good idea of what they could be. I thought Caleb Rogers looked good inside. I couldn't just focus on the offensive line where I was and what I was trying to do in the in-game updates, but so far I think that's been a good move. Sterling Porcher, I think it's Porcher, that's how you say his name, is probably going to be your starting left tackle. I think Ty Buchanan, he looks a lot better than when he first showed up. Now he's been in Power 5 Division I football. He transferred from USC, Texas native, after his freshman year out there at USC. And he looks legit now. He is your classic, no nonsense, just mean hombre out there. I had to edit myself. And I think he's going to be your right tackle. But those two guys could switch, honestly. So bottom line is offensive line. I don't think there's a great 2 deep. I don't think they're where McGuire wants the offensive line to be ultimately. I think the last 2 recruiting classes, you're going to get 7 guys, 8 guys out of that group that will be in the 2 deep in the years moving forward, and they'll continue to add to that. But they're not quite ready yet. And so they have some stopgaps, a couple of returners. And I think it's going to be, I hesitate to say this, but I think it's going to be at least a slightly improved unit over what we've seen the last couple of seasons. So that'll be interesting. Big news coming out. I can't believe I'm only just now saying it, but Cameron Brown was named the backup quarterback behind Baron Morton. And you know what? If I hadn't seen what I saw today and what I've seen, what I've heard about him throughout spring ball, I would be very skeptical. So if you're a Texas Tech fan out there, you're like, this dude out of West Georgia has beaten out these high-profile recruits, Jake Strong and Will Hammond, who, let's be honest, Will Hammond, he's here early enrollee. He's a true freshman. He looks really good. They like him, but he's very young. Cameron Brown is a sophomore, 6'2", 230, very good athlete. That's immediately available to. It's immediately obvious to someone who goes out there who's been doing this for a long time like I have, or even if you haven't. But his arm is much better than I thought. He has a really strong arm. As Coach McGuire said after the spring ball, and he said throughout spring ball, the thing with Brown is not arm strength. It's the dude throws a rope, and he needs to take some off the ball, really, put some air under the ball and provide some touch on some of those deep passes. And he threw some nice deep balls for touchdowns today. So I think Brown's going to be able to get there. He is much better than I thought he was going to be coming from West Georgia. And I think maybe it has to do with just some of the talent around him. Trying to think about what else I missed. At running back, I really like Cam Dickey, the true freshman. Cameron Valdez had a couple of really nice, strong power runs. And then McGuire mentioned this. I missed this. I didn't see this. I'm trying to do play-by-play in a thread on Inside the Red Raiders. I didn't see this, but this is great news. But according to McGuire, Valdez made an awesome blitz pickup where he said he didn't know who the defender was, but that he stonewalled this dude, and that allowed for a huge play on offense early in the game. So, and that's what the coaches really want to see from him, that he can do that, the blitz pickup, because that's a big part of playing running back in football in general, but especially in the college game. So, yeah, I think overall, if you can't tell, I'm fired up. McGuire was fired up, which he always is, but it was legit. It wasn't fake. That was a really fun experience. It was. I'm going to go ahead and say it was the best spring game I've ever been to, and I really enjoyed it. There's many factors that went into it. I think this team's going to be good. It's deep, and they know it. You know, they're not talking big about it, but you could tell that there's a quiet confidence, and it's a couple of years now in McGuire's system. So, and Kidley's and DeRuyter's system. So guys know what's expected of them, and they performed very well today. So I'm leaving spring ball very optimistic, and I was kind of guarded. Y'all heard so much coming out of last year, and then it didn't pan out exactly. It was still a good season, but it wasn't the season that we all were expecting. So people don't, show me, don't tell me. But I went to many practices, like half the practices I was at, and I saw some good stuff. But the spring game, I really got to see some real football. And I feel really optimistic coming out of the spring game that, yes, there's some questions. There's legit questions at quarterback and offensive line. But I feel much better about both after the spring game. But that doesn't deter from the other positions that I felt really good about. So this is going to be a good team. They have a favorable schedule. I think it's going to be a really exciting season next year. And I'm going to have a series of videos spotlighting and really going more into depth of every position group over the next days and weeks post spring ball. And there'll be a bunch of write-ups, notes, and stuff as well. So for now, I want to thank you for watching. And until next time.